Job security? Let's get real. That expired years ago. And if you haven't been in a search for a while, you will, by choice or when choice runs out. Most executives I talk to stay way too long. They see the signs and then they rationalize them away. But the real trap isn't the job or the transition. It's this faulty belief that what comes next has to be worse. So screw that. I built this show for you and for other executives who want more but aren't sure how to get there. Let's start with this. You already know that the old rules don't work. The resume, just a piece of paper, and the recycled advice, more noise. This is Career Blast and a Half for executives over 40 who want smarter moves, faster wins, and zero wasted motion. I'm Lauren Greif, and I've spent my career helping leaders like you land where they belong, on purpose, with power, more earnings, and without apology. So let's go. We have a guest today that I could not be more excited about. You may or may not know him, Matt Alder. And Matt has been in the talent acquisition field for over 25 years. I mean, this is a true expert. His podcast, Recruiting Future, is powerful, super powerful. And if you're not listening to it, definitely get on board with that. But what I really am here to talk to him about and share with all of you, amazing listeners, is what is happening with the gold standard of recruitment, talent acquisition, and its exponential interest in speed, which speed to hiring is the currency, if not like the only currency, and how that relates to bias. So, with innovation comes other opportunities and challenges. So Matt, please introduce yourself to our audience and share with us a little known fact about why you're still doing this whole talent acquisition thing. Tell us what's behind it.
So, as you say, I've been in this space for a really long time. For the last 11 years, I've been running my podcast, which looks at the future of recruiting. And, if you're looking at the future for 11 years, then, you can kind of spot trends and see what's happening. And, my career has taken in lots of technology innovations that have come in from the internet onwards. So it's been sort of a fascinating time to see how recruiting has been evolving, or actually in most cases, not evolving. Why do I still do this? This is a really good question. I've had a number of opportunities to move out of this industry and I never have. And I worked out in the last few years, it's because I feel really strongly that recruitment is not serving people properly and hasn't been for decades. And I think that I wowould really like to help to try to fix it. I think that's the thing. And I think to this point, we've seen lots of technologies come into the space that promise much, but have, not delivered. And I'm hoping that we're at a bit of an inflection point now where we might get to the point where recruiting actually works properly, gets people the opportunities they deserve, and gets companies the talent they deserve.
So I'm glad that you dispelled the myth of you're doing it because, you think that recruiting is, the be all and end all. And that you and I actually share a very similar, I guess you could say, beef with the industry, right? It's not serving people well. And in your opinion, what are the 3 areas that you feel recruiting, because in many, many, many job seekers' eyes, those people are the Messiah, right? They're there to save you and facilitate the outcomes that you're looking for. Landing a job, getting you into the right company, and certainly, making sure that the role that you are interviewing for, you get. So what are the 3 areas that, I guess, grind your gears about the recruiting industry today?
Yeah, I think that, first of all, most of the people I know who work in the recruiting industry are amazing and really have people's best interests at heart. They do that job because they love working with people. So I think that's the first thing that I would say. I think the first point, which is the overarching problem, is really the process by which people get hired has been the same for decades, if not hundreds of years.
And define the sameness so that we all are on the same page with
Sure.
you.
So the resume interview process. So you write your resume, maybe you have a cover letter, maybe you don't, who knows these days, and you do some kind of interview process and people work out whether it's a good fit for the job. And fundamentally, that doesn't work properly and hasn't worked properly for a really long time. If you take a step back and look at the science behind industrial psychology, which is the science that studies this kind of thing, resumes and interviews are the least effective way of predicting someone's performance in a job. And it's just incredible that they're still the mainstay of what we do. So fundamentally, I think that the process is not fit for purpose, basically. I think that's exacerbated by the fact that when the internet came along, I don't know, 25 years ago or whatever that was, I think we all felt that recruiting would get quicker, it would get better, a lot of these problems would be fixed. But what happened was the old process kind of got translated into the digital process. And what that then did is that opened up speed and volume without that process being fixed. So anyone could apply for a job anywhere in the world very, very quickly. And that has kind of sort of significantly made some of the problems that we have worse, effectively. So that's the second thing.
I know. I saw that you lost.
There we go.
There
we
you
lied.
go. Yeah.
So that's the second thing, and I think the third thing is kind of around technology, and I think that for lots of different reasons, technology has always been really badly implemented in recruitment processes. So I think if you take those three things, they're a big, they're kind of they're huge factors behind the sort of situation that we find ourselves in now, which no one is really happy with. I don't think you really find anyone who would say that, recruiting everywhere is absolutely perfect and companies are getting the exact talent they need and job seekers are getting the communication they need. I think you'd struggle to find anyone who would think that things are currently perfect.
Well, I think that the role of a recruiter, and as you said, in many cases, even the best ones, the people that have all their heart and soul into this, they come with a little bit of a stigma, right? Because you're still a recruiter. And what that means is that you have a job to do. And so there's always this kind of like curiosity, like, who are you really in this for? Because that's how recruiters get paid, right? And to put this person in this role. So my question is, go ahead, please.
No, I was going to say, absolutely, that is the case. Either they're being sort of, paid directly because they're an agency recruiter, or it's part of their job that they get a salary for as a corporate recruiter. I think the thing to say, though, is they're looking for, yes, they are working effectively for the employer, but they're looking for the best talent that they can find for that job, essentially. Now, is the process perfect? No, but are their motivations based around trying to find, the best talent? Very often that's the case.
Hopefully, exactly. Yeah. And so you've laid the groundwork so beautifully, right? In saying the industry has been many years of rinse and repeat. And then when technology does come along, it isn't necessarily integrated in a very seamless way. So welcome to the world of AI. So here we have both the catalyst for change and probably the most mind-blowing area of technology that we've ever had opportunity to.
Yeah.
So talk to us about the current state, and I hesitate to even say forecast, for what we're going to be seeing within the world of AI and recruiting. But mostly what I'm really curious about is, how does the currency of speed meet the human demand of being able to meet the needs of the respective talent without the filters of extreme bias? I can't even say no bias because I don't know if that's even possible.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I suppose to start by taking a little bit of a step back from that, I think it's important to look at what the current situation is. So I think from a job seeker perspective, there is a perception that AI is being used far more widely and far more deeply than it actually is. I recently did a research, right, a bit of research where I spoke to 200 different companies, and only sort of 55, I think only something sort of 20% of them were using AI in a really strategic way, and the 55% were using it they were using it to do things like write job descriptions and things like that. And I'll come back to that in a second as a potential issue. So I think that a lot of the time, some of the bad communication and bias that's in the process is being blamed on AI, when actually a lot of it is to do with the job market at the moment, which means there are, thousands and thousands of people applying for individual jobs sometimes. And the kind of the human, mistakes that humans make, or bias that humans make. Lots of recruitment teams are having to, do more things quicker with less people. So I think that's that's important to realize. However, there is a lot of things going on with AI at the moment, and I think that we're at a very early stage with this, and there are lots of danger areas and lots of things happening that shouldn't be happening. In the medium to longer term, I'm much more optimistic because I think it can actually solve some of the issues that we have. So let me just sort of dig into both of those things. So, I mentioned earlier that companies are using AI to do things like generate job adverts and things like that. The problem is, in doing so, they're using the LLMs that are out there, the publicly available ones. Even if they're using it through some kind of corporate version, they're still tapping into the same LLMs. And there's continuing research into this, in the fact that they are all biased in different ways because of the way they've been trained. And no one really knows how they've been trained. They're kind of biased to a certain extent, which means that ultimately, right at the start of the process, you're getting copy in job adverts, which is not inclusive, which is already already biased. And I don't think that people who are using, who are doing this necessarily even kind of realize that. So, that's one thing. AI is being used a lot in frontline hiring, where things need to be done very, 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 very quickly. And there's obviously a lot of noise out there about, AI, matching people, looking at CVs and all that sort of stuff, and also AI interviews. And how can these things be fair? And what's going on? Why has the company not got time to talk to me and all that sort of stuff? Again, there are some really bad implementations and perhaps some products that shouldn't be on the market, but also there's some really good stuff out there as well. And I think that one of the problems is, recruiting as an industry is not very good at telling people, telling the good stories about what some of the advantages are of some of these systems. So I think that's that's another sort of another key issue around it. And ultimately, one of the problems is, if the AI is kind of scoring resumes and applications and all that kind of stuff, we're still using resumes, and there's just not enough data on them to be able to really make kind of proper matches and things like that. So a lot of the issues are because we're applying sophisticated AI technology to this 200-year-old process, and that is a big issue. And actually what that's doing is that's just amplifying a broken process, and it's taking the bias that's already there and making it even bigger.
I am blowing the lid off of our best kept secret, our 30-day blast program. Yeah, you heard it. 30 days. We have seen so much success for this program that past clients have landed in that 30 days and increased their compensation 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, over 100%. Now, Not everybody lands and earns that much in 30 days, but my point is it prepares you. And in 30 days, if you're not out of there with a changed mindset and changed, clear and simple ways to be able to navigate the market this year, then we'll gladly refund your misery and you can go back to applying now. Check out the link below for the next 30-day blast, and we would love to have you there because we live for your success, and that's what's really important. See you then.
Yeah.
So the stimuli is still the same, is what you're saying. You're still basing it off of
Yeah.
a resume. Okay, so now I'm going to ask you the $7 million question.
Sure.
What should it be using?
That's a great question.
If the resume is not the best control,
Yep.
right? And I've been hearing a lot about this area, at least on LinkedIn, with respect to influence density, whereby they're looking through not just the profile, but all the adjacencies that are contributing to this person's candidacy. How are they engaging with others? What are they saying in terms of thought leadership? So all of these things are now more holistic in understanding the candidate versus the resume alone. How does that work in AI as people are hitting apply now?
Yeah, I mean that's a really good question. I think that all of the kind of the adjacent information is just really important in building the picture around the person. I think there might be tools that do look at that at the moment, but actually most of them are still very much focused on the resume. There's a couple of things that I've seen moving forward that could be the answer. So I've seen a couple of vendors in this space build tools where the AI does a resume match. And in a lot of cases, AI can do a resume match than recruiters because it can, if 1,000 people apply for a job, a recruiter cannot look at 1,000 CVs in any detail, whereas an AI can. So, that's something to kind of consider. So the best systems that I've seen, they're not, they're kind of offering kind of like scoring and things like that. But what they're doing is they are trying to fill in the missing information in the best possible way. And sometimes that can be flagging up to a recruiter, actually, this person is not a great match, but that's because, and we don't know this about them. So if you went and found out this, and this, then actually they could be the best match in the pile. So I think that's interesting. And then at a kind of more volume recruitment level, there's a system that does the same thing, but then will offer candidates an AI conversation interview to try and fill in those gaps. So it will ask those questions. Okay, so actually this job needs this skill or this experience. Do you have that? And the candidate's like, yes, I do, but it's just not been expressed on the resume properly. So I think that is great. And
so it's almost like not just a screener, but it also leaves the door open. I'm sure there's probably some metric that says, hey, they're 75, 80% of the way there.
Absolutely.
However, this is a gap.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
So I think that is, that's great. And then the other thing about the process as a whole, I think that one of the things that technology can do is move some of the assessment bits that normally happen towards the end of the process. We've got a short list of 10 people, 4 people, let's put them through an assessment process. Whereas what a lot of the assessment companies are now building is technology that can move right to the top of that process. So actually, the first thing you do is the assessment. And actually, what that does is that gives you proper feedback. Okay, this is a scientific assessment, not a pseudoscience. This is what you've scored. This is, these are perhaps areas for development. And then as people kind of move through the process, that information is there behind them. And that to me seems like another way of potentially solving this. So I think there's a couple of routes there. Unfortunately, these are not implemented at any kind of scale at the moment. So, but I'd like to see them as trends that might sort of pick up as we move forward.
Okay, so I'm going to add that to your holiday wish list because that's it could be coming. I think the real question that I have, especially as both of us are very keen on helping executives over 40, is knowing what we know about hidden job market. 80 to 85% of all executive roles are filled through networking opportunities, right? I guess my question is, why does recruitment and talent acquisition miss this opportunity for how executives really get hired? Is there some kind of AI networking thing that could potentially replace this control of the resume. I mean, if reputation and what people are saying about you, the value that you have within said industry is so monumental and so powerful, how is it that we can leverage AI, or how is it that it's just not factored in at all?
Yeah, I think that we have to kind of look at what AI is good at absorbing a huge amount of information and make some kind of sense of it. That sense of it might be biased in one direction or the other. So, at the technical level, looking at huge data set and spotting patterns is the one thing that you can do. Now, I'm kind of constantly talking to people at the kind of executive recruitment end of the market to see what impact, AI is having on what they do. And from a recruiter perspective at that end of the market, the personal human interface is critical. And it's critical to kind of build those relationships and do those kind of things. A lot of them are starting to use AI for research to actually, look at the market, to look at all of these different things that are out there and all these kind of signals to kind of build a bit more of a picture about the people that they're approaching or the people that are applying. And, I think that's interesting and inevitable, really. And I think that it kind of really does speak to the fact that how is your, what is your reputation and what makes your reputation and what's out there, what's out there about you. So I think that's kind of a definitely a key part of it. I'm not sure how it kind of really progresses in that market, other than one of the big themes at the moment across all of recruitment is, can AI actually make the human interaction part of recruitment even more valuable? So can it deal with a lot of the admin, the stuff that that recruiters have to do and say, and all of that kind of thing? Just take that away and mean that when people are having those face-to-face interactions, they are as valuable as they possibly can be. And that's kind of a real sort of direction of travel. Now, we're still not quite sure what that looks like, but it's certainly, I think, the thing that people are trying to get to, because this is just very disruptive for the recruiting space, if you can imagine. Because as I say, it requires a whole new way of thinking about recruitment and recruiting processes. It's come at a time where the market has flipped, and there are, for many jobs, there are way more candidates out there than there are positions, which means that at the same time, job seekers, quite rightly, are using AI tools as well, which is also ratcheting up the level of applications that people have to deal with.
Oh my God. You just completely walked into my next question.
There we go.
I love this. Thank you. So who's the biggest cheater here? Is it the recruitment industry that is using AI as a way to be able to, go through this intense volume of candidates and potentially write, job descriptions that don't really match, right? That doesn't seem very cool. Or is it the candidates that are also using it to write resumes so that they can game the system by increasing keyword density, et cetera, et cetera?
So the biggest cheater is whichever side of that equation says the other one can't do it while they're doing it. I think that's the best way to describe it. If the employer is using AI and takes a very dim view of their candidates doing it, then they're the cheater. If the candidate is using AI to put applications in, and then they're concerned that the employer is using AI to read them, then that doesn't work either. So I think that's the thing, and it's I think that a lot of people, particularly in the recruitment industry, kind of see this is kind of some passing phase. Candidates are doing this. We'll have better technology to deal with it. It's not. It's a trend. And when I said that I felt we might be at the point where recruiting was going to change for the better, I think this dynamic, because it breaks the whole process so badly, is perhaps the catalyst for change that we're looking for. Because if you think about it, you get to a position where the candidate's AI is talking to the employer's AI, and where are all the humans? But actually, what if you kind of flip that round and that was a good thing, and it was just making the human interaction kind of more important? And I think that employers need to take candidates' use of AI and look at it very differently as a trend. Look at how that technology is going to develop. At the moment, it's kind of fairly crude. It's like we can you can apply for 1,000 jobs in 10 seconds. We're going to rewrite your resume to match the text in the job ad. Really kind of basic stuff, but at scale. But actually, what if that side of the market, ended up building these like sophisticated career agents that knew all about, someone's hidden skills and all the things they did and could go out there and, represent them to all the employer AIs. That might actually be a really good thing. So I'm fascinated by what's going to happen here. But I think with all of it at the moment, it's just all applying an accelerator to a system that's already broken. So I think that's what's causing a lot of the issues. I think that people don't really even understand where a lot of the bias is coming in. And I think it's important to kind of realize that. And then I think we've got to take a judgment on actually human recruiters are biased as well. Hiring managers are biased as well. Where is the balance where the technology is actually less biased than the humans? And I think that there's it's a kind of interesting dynamic, because there are scenarios where it absolutely can be. But it's just, as I say, there's kind of this sort of, sometimes the implementations aren't very good. Sometimes people are trying to do things that the technology can't do. Sometimes they're missing a key part that's actually bringing the bias in. So we're just very much at that. I think the trouble with AI moving so quickly is we're very much at this experimental stage, but because it moves so quickly, it's just kind of everywhere, and it's like a very, very big experiment rather than something a little bit more contained.
So regardless of how long AI has actually been around, its adoption and its integration into the world of recruitment is still very young. So everybody's going through growing pains, both in terms of how integrated it is from the talent perspective, where it lands within the implementation of the organization, and certainly from the job seeker standpoint, both in terms of being able to answer questions around it, but also specifically in the tactics that you're using in the act process. With that being said, like you are the man. I mean, Matt, you're the man in the recruiting industry and the future of this area. What should we be thinking about in order to leverage the tools, optimize the value of relationships, and also be open to all the changes that are to come? How can we get ahead of this?
Well, that's a brilliant question. And if I knew the whole answer, then I can be very happy, because it's still evolving. Yeah, I think one of the things I just want to kind of say before I really get into that is I think that these kind of matching technologies and ATS systems have been in recruiting for a long time. I think there's a lot of discussion out there about how do we beat these systems and keyword density and all that kind of stuff. I think that the AI is taking this to a different level now. And actually, my advice to any job seeker is to make sure that you are properly representing your skills and experience on your resume in a way that someone can understand, rather than focusing on, I'm going to try and hack this system with this, with this, that, and the other. So that's the first thing I'd say. So yeah, kind of moving forward, I think that it all comes down to, vision. And the employers that I work with, I always talk to them about having a vision for talent acquisition in the future, and having a vision. I think we're kind of really at a fork in the road here. I think that there are sort of two extreme outcomes. One is a continuingly dystopian world full of bias and robots making decisions and people never getting to talk to humans and all that kind of stuff. But I think there's another destination where it works for everyone. So hiring managers are getting the talent that they need. Candidates are getting the jobs that they deserve, even if that job is in a completely different industry to one that they've worked in before. I think taking away that, those kind of biases around types of experience and things like that is something that ultimately these systems could help to do. So I think it's just having the vision to move towards that. And I think that because recruiting is always identified as a high risk area when it comes to AI, at least we're in the position where there is legislation coming in, and regulation, or an
Oh,
awareness that this is an issue. And what means that the vendors and developers in this space are designing with that in mind. They're designing with the fact that actually there is a potentially even more scrutiny coming on what we do. So we have to build something, that's transparent and kind of fair. So I would hope that that's the direction that we kind of move in. And I think it's just really important that, we kind of just really understand what it's like to be a job seeker at the moment, how we can make that better, but also ultimately how we can make the right matches, just finding the right people for a job, regardless of, industry they've worked in or things they've done before, but just, based on their skills and their capabilities and, what their future performance is going to be. And, I'm optimistic about this, and I'm optimistic that we'll get to that point, but this is disruptive, and it's a rocky road to get there at the moment. And, there are huge kind of difficulties and issues that are currently occurring with this.
Okay, from a human standpoint, what do you want to say to executives about where they are going as far as, are you asking them be patient with recruiting? Are you saying be patient with technology? What is the rub that we want to share? What can you share with them? Because I understand that you're optimistic, but if I'm a job seeker out there in the marketplace going, well, wait a second, give me the 411 on how this thing is really going to help me, what would you say?
I think that the most important thing to do is understand exactly what the market situation is in your particular niche of the market. So, what is it that, are there a huge amount of people looking for a similar job to you? It's like, what's actually going on? Is the experience you're getting not necessarily because of recruiting technology, but just because of insane demand and things like that. So I think having an understanding of what's going on in the market is really, really important. And then just really having an understanding of what it is that makes you different, what it is that makes you stand out. I think that anyone, everywhere, whatever they do, in any type of sales or marketing, and job hunting is a bit like sales and marketing, the challenge is just standing out from all of the noise that's out there at the moment. And you can only really do that by really pinpointing what makes you different as an individual. So I think that's really important. And then I think also what's really important for people who, back running companies or whatever, which I'm sure, is something that a lot of your audience does, think really deeply about talent in your organization. And, how can you challenge what goes on to make sure that you're getting the best talent that you need with all the processes and technology that it needs. So I would say that as well, because I think that what happens a lot with recruiting is it's seen as a very transactional activity. At the moment, recruiting teams are being slashed because there aren't as many jobs, but actually there are lots of important things that they could be doing. And I don't think many in the C-suite pay that much attention to how their company recruits people. And I would, I think it's such an important thing to think about. So I think that's an important aspect of it as well. And also just, look at the tools that are available to you. What is, how can you use AI in an ethical and effective way in your job search? And the answer to that will probably be very different in 2 months' time to what it is now, because some of the tools out there for how people present themselves and do research, absolutely incredible. What you can do with some of these systems. So use them to your advantage.
Thank you so much, Matt. I'm so glad that you're here. The voice of talent, the voice of AI, and the merger of these two things together, and all the challenges and opportunities that there are. I'm going to say it because I believe it. As good as AI will ever be, there is going to be nothing that is going to have the depth and the propulsion as the relationships that you have.
I agree with you 1,000,000%. Absolutely. Yeah.
So if you are focusing just on your resume and recruiters to make this happen, you have a huge opportunity to put that back on you and to really remember that the recruiter or the resume can't do the heavy lifting. Your reputation can. And so all that being said, Matt, my hat goes off to you. You're just doing tremendous work. And I simply adore you and all of what you're sharing, both on your podcast and, of course, on LinkedIn. Thank you, everybody, for listening today. This is such an important episode because we are about to move into probably many, 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 many other waves of AI. So, AI is not the boogeyman, recruiting is not the boogeyman, talent acquisition isn't the problem. You have the opportunity to really take whatever is in your candidacy and really be able to differentiate. So thank you all for listening. If you guys love this episode, man, follow Matt, number one. And number two, please write us an Apple Podcast review. I will tell you right now, the show is growing and we really appreciate you. And we want to make sure that this gets shared with others. Thanks again, Matt. Have a great rest of your day and signing off. See you next week.
Thank you for joining today. We appreciate your listening ears. Big time. We ask this: use these tools, not tomorrow, right now, and share them by spreading the love, leaving us a rating and subscribe so you don't miss the next career blast in a half. Most of all, thank you for you.